Moving on with our conversation, the first hour is Matt Fallon, and we will take phone calls for Matt. 989-752-6111. Matt, of course, is the head of the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance. He is the voice of Hey Great Lakes Bay, our podcast, heard twice on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and online. And he's also the president of the Bay City School Board. He's an activist, community activist, and in a former life, he was a national fundraiser for Democrats, for national politics. He didn't deal in thousands. He only dealt in millions. Something like that, anyway.
You know, the media, you got to pay those bills. Those commercial spots aren't free.
No,
I don't
not.
hear WSGW giving a discount on political advertising.
Oh, no, that's not true.
You got to pay those bills.
No, that's not true. Political use ads are sold at the lowest price charged by anyone to anyone for the previous period of time. But a political use ad is defined as an ad where the candidate's voice or likeness is on, identified, or recognizable. That's a political use ad. One of the PACs that run advertising on issues, they pay the big rate.
Oh, you got to love those ads. They come in with a dark, deep voice. Did you know that Art Lewis did X, Y, and Z? He's a horrible person.
That's right. Thank you very much.
It's good that those ads are charged at that level. They should be.
That's fun, though. It's just I've been at this so long, I'm immune to it anymore. I mean, it's just I tell people I don't hear what goes on when I'm not talking on the air. Like talking to you right now, I'm paying attention. When we go to the break, I don't hear what's happening. In my mind, someplace else,
Not even when you hear your own voice during one of the ads,
No,
are you like, oh my
particularly.
gosh, who is that guy in the background?
That doesn't faze me at all.
So, Art, we were chatting a little bit earlier, but, one of the biggest, I think, misconceptions that's out there, people often think that they know these political candidates or politicians based on what they see on TV or based on what they see on social media.
Or what
but
they hear from hosts on the radio.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's part of it is a little bit of the candidates are very protective of themselves. They're trying to be on. They're trying not to mess up. But when you're behind a closed door and there's no media with these politicians, the one thing I would tell you, they are people. One of my funniest stories ever, Art, you will love this, is Barack Obama. Before he's like really anyone, he'd given the big speech to the DNC, but that's it. So we're talking 2005. He was coming into Virginia to campaign for alongside Tim Kaine. In 2005, no one really knows Barack Obama, Art. Unless you're an inside baseball person, you have no idea. But people at these big political events love to. So he was flying into the airport in Richmond, going to go to a couple of events, and it's a couple weeks before the election. So fundraising's done. We've raised the money. So the campaign says, hey, I need someone to go pick up Barack Obama and drive him around for the day going to these events. Since they came in and said, Matt, would you do it? I'm like, sure. So at the time, it was just kind of a fun thing going to grab the senator from Illinois. Looking back at it now, it was quite incredible. I literally go to the Richmond airport, and I'm in a spot, and Barack Obama calls us where he at, and he comes out, and he jumps into my car. And so the two of us are driving around for the day going to campaign stops. But my favorite part, so we're driving, and it happened to be a Sunday, and I'm listening to the Lions game on the radio. And so he gets in, he goes, hey, Matt. He goes, what game are we listening to? And I said, the Lions game. And he kind of stops for a second, and he gets a wry smile. And he goes, who are they playing? And I go, the Bears. And he goes, so we're listening to the Bears game, right? And I look at him, I go, no. I go, we're listening to the Lions game. And he's having a little fun with me. He goes, listen, Matt. He goes, you're the staff guy. I'm the senator. We're listening to the Bears game. I'm not lying. I pull off to the side of the road, and I hit the brakes, and I go, you can get out right now. And he just starts dying laughing. But that was the interaction that I had with him. That's how, it was personal, right? We were just jockeying over, was it the Lions game or the Bears game? And so a lot of the times when I see him, and I've seen him clearly on TV and everything else a billion times from then, that's how I think of him still. Just the two of us razzing each other in the front seat of a car.
Before we get to the phones, you had asked before we broke for the news, my believability, whatever that is.
High. It's high, Art.
I am who I am. As a matter of fact, we had consultants in here years and years ago on talk radio, And I said, look, guys, not going to change my stripes. This is who I am. I don't pretend to be anybody else. If you meet me outside this radio station, I'm exactly the same as I am inside this radio station. Period. I don't want to live a false life. I don't want to have to pretend to be somebody else. So you take me for what I am. Better or worse, but that's who I am. I don't change. Now, my viewpoints change. As I learn about things, I'm willing to say I was wrong, or I'm willing to say, wow, I have a new viewpoint I can look at. But that's me, and I've always lived that way.
So as someone, it's really, the relationship you and I have built in the last 5 years is really fascinating because I get to host your show, right? So when it starts, I'm always like, welcome to the Art Lewis Show. It's not the Matt Flon Show. It's the Art Lewis Show. And I'm very careful that when I do host the show, I do it the way that you do. It's your show. I try to do it in your image. I don't try to recreate something that it's not.
Yeah, but, the fact is you're who you are.
Correct. But people, when they listen into the show, they expect that same thing. And it's gotten credibility because I don't try to recreate it. But what I've learned in being your guest host is that it automatically gives me credence because you've built it over 50-some years. And people know you have opinions.
Longevity does count for something.
But they've heard you for so long. They know what you say to be true. You are very, even though you may disagree with a caller or you may have a different opinion than someone that's listening, you're point blank about where you're at. And you've built a trust level. It's, whether you want to hear this or not, it's a Walter Cronkite level of trust that listeners have with you.
Here's the thing. I don't judge people on their politics, their color, their race, creed, religion. I grew up in the streets of New York, in the Bronx. And the first thing I learned very young, at a young age, is we're all the same. And you had to act that way in the group because that's the way it's the way you survived, really. But it was a very mixed area. And it's served me well. And politically, I don't judge people politically. And many of my friends who were staunch Democrats. One of my best friends, before he's doing what he's doing now, which I won't tell you, was the chairman of the Democratic Party in Saginaw. And we'd have lunch, and we'd agree on more than we disagree on. The big issues, the dividers, yeah, okay. I look at it this way, he looks at it that way. But most of the things for everyday life, we agree on. Bob Traxler was one of our very good friends. We used to stay with Bob at his condo in Alexandria. My wife and I would go there. We went like 3 years in a row we stayed there. And it was great. And he taught me a lot about politics. He used to say, look, there are 3 Ds in politics. You debate, you deliberate, you decide. Where'd that go? That's long gone.
And ladies and gentlemen, in the weeks ahead on a show called Hey, Great Lakes Bay, you can hear more about Art and his time growing up in the Bronx and how he got his belief system when we air that episode both on Saturday and Sunday and then via podcast form. But it's important because we do get to hear some of that story when I turn the tables on you, which you loved every single second of.
I wouldn't say that, but that's all right. All right, we're going to take a break, come back. We got Carl and Gus waiting for us. Guys, hang on. Thanks for waiting. We'll be right back.
Chanting and booing, like Governor Newsom and the mayor of L.A., other elected officials. We've always had a history of the military being non-political. It doesn't belong to one party or the other. Matt, what do you think about President Trump and his military?
So I'll be honest, I've been struggling a little bit for the last couple weeks on a couple fronts with the use of the military. I'm going to go in a different direction first. I'm not a fan of the parade that's upcoming.
Me either.
It's something that third world countries do to try to show fake might that doesn't really exist. They try to put out hollow missiles and show you how strong they are.
Yeah, Carl, I'm going to get you to hang up and listen on the radio.
Yeah, so that is definitely one. The other, what's going on in L.A. is really difficult for people to fully understand. It's a little confusing because there's pieces of both sides that I like and don't like, I'll just say. Number one, I think there's a misconception that the folks there that are protesting are all illegals, and that is not the case. If you know Los Angeles, it is a heavily Latino population, and they're American. They're Americans.
Yeah.
They're unhappy with what's going on. So using the military, I think a lot of citizens believe that the military is being used against a foreign actor, and it's not. These are U.S. citizens, so that's concerning.
However, all we hear out there from the politicians out there is peaceful protesting, burning Waymo cars, destroying property, destroying buildings. Not peaceful in my mind. But you have to go after those actors, not the ones that are exercising their rights.
Fully agree. Where I would say, though, is local law enforcement should be able to handle that. I don't think we should be deploying Marines.
Apparently they haven't.
I
they didn't.
think the issue that's happening that has to be fixed is the local authorities need to take control, and they have to stand up and do what they're responsible for. The part where I disagree with the protesters and where I think they could have a lot more clout, they're waving Mexican flags out of pride. If you're U.S. citizens and you're protesting what's happening in your country, if you really want to get through to everyone, wave American flags. That may get through to everyone a little bit more of, look, we're Americans and this is for America and we're trying to protect people here, and you're scaring American citizens with what you're doing. Please think about this a different way. Unfortunately, it's the immigration issue, period, is one of those issues that's punted around as a political football and not actually fixed.
Kicked down the road, administration after administration.
Both parties.
Congress after Congress, both parties.
This is a problem. Both parties not fixing an issue that's complex to fix. If people thought they could come here legally and you opened Ellis Island, trust me, there'd be boats pulling into Ellis Island and they would try to come here the way other people did.
But that would be legal.
Correct, but there's no way to do that now.
Well, we need to streamline this process.
1,000%.
There are ways to do it because you can cross the bridges legally and ask for asylum. If you come across the bridge and you ask for asylum, you're going to be put into the process. If you cross the river and ask for asylum, you haven't come legally. And that's the problem. The problem is you can't have a country without a border. And you need to have a border to have a country.
1,000% agree. The difference is it's frustrating for folks. Or folks
I agree.
Folks that came here, let's say in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you went across on your voyage, you came in, you filled out a paperwork, you got a medical check, boom, you were here. Legally. The process is not like that anymore. You just can't say, I want to come here legally. It costs a lot of money and takes a long time. So if you're in a village where people are literally fighting for their lives, you'd rather break a law than risk dying back home in a third world country where drug lords are torturing people.
The other side of it is Mexico has some of the most stringent immigration laws in the world, but they totally ignored them to allow people just to transit through their country from south to north.
Agree. That's a massive problem. But
that's a problem.
I think the key issue is at some point the country has to come together as Democrats and Republicans in a bipartisan manner and fix immigration laws.
I totally agree. Let's talk to Gus in Midland. Gus, good morning to you. Thanks for waiting.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good.
Gus, are we making pizza today?
We are, buddy. Couple quick things. Matt, did you keep Tara out of that the swim-up bar the other day?
We did. Somehow we did. But I'll tell you, that swim-up bar at Bavarian Blast, it's such a cool story, Gus, because the law didn't allow for swim-up bars at hotels in Michigan until Bavarian Blast was built, and they advocated for a law change so that could be the case. So I am hoping that summers in Michigan, because of that, Gus, now look like the Caribbean with swim-up bars everywhere, because now that that's legal, I think you're going to see that at our resorts across the state, and it started right here in Frankenmuth. But we did keep Tara out of the swim-up bar that Friday we were there.
And we'll never be able to find Matt Fallon once they open all over.
Yeah, and the other thing is Matt, I appreciate you taking over for Art and accepting some phone calls and hearing the people's voices out there. I think it's a great addition to the show when you take over.
You know what? So, Art, you'll appreciate this. I was walking through an event, and it was just out in the community, and this arm grabs me, and it's Gus. And I knew who he was by name, but not by face. And I was kind of startled because, I like when you do that Art Lewis show. He goes, but quit being such a chicken and start taking some calls. You need to take calls and talk to the people. So I'm dead serious. After that interaction, I came into Jonathan and said,
know you did
when
that.
I'm here, let's start taking some calls. And I even took them. And we're going to flip the script back on you one more
No, you're
time.
not.
You got to quit taking election day off on these presidential election years and leaving me with a show on election day because
Who's
I
better?
get
Who's
all
better?
the great calls on that day, and we took calls the entire day. So Gus, I'm glad that you enjoy this part now.
All right.
All right,
Perfect, guys.
it's-
Maybe we'll see you out here for the golf tournament in a couple weeks.
Pepperoni with cheese, please.
We'll both be there, Gus. We will both be out there.
All right, Gus,
All right, I
have
can
a
bring you a
good one.
breakfast pizza for the. All right, I'll bring you a breakfast pizza on the first tee. How's that?
We'll talk to you, friend. That sounds good.
take
Take
care.
care. Bye-bye now. And let's talk to Marcellus in
Hey,
Saginaw.
Rabbi.
Marcellus, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Art. How
Morning.
you doing this morning?
Very well, thanks.
I don't call in on a regular basis, but you said, the two of you and Matt said something earlier, just in this call before this one, about the protesters. And I totally agree with you. If they're going to protest, peacefully protest, they shouldn't have any other flags out there except the American flag. I strongly believe in that, because
Well,
people that even watches it, even when I'm watching it, I feel like if this is an American protest, then other people with their ideas, thoughts, they shouldn't be in this protest. They shouldn't be a part of this.
well, let me
They got
just,
their own protest.
Marcellus,
Oh, go ahead.
let me offer this up because I want your reaction, both you and Matt. While I would like to see the American flag flown, and I fully agree, part of protesting in this country is your free speech ability to say what you want, particularly when it comes to politics and political issues. If that includes flying the Mexican flag, so be it. But you have to remember, if you do that, you may get a negative response from Americans. But it's part of your right to do it. So, yeah, I'd like to see the American flag flown, but I don't take away their right to show the Mexican flag.
So I'll jump in real quick. And Marcellus, thanks for the call. I'll jump in real quick and say, listen, I completely agree, Art, where the point I was making about the American flag, while the folks definitely have the right to fly whatever flag they want, because that is their right as an American, that freedom of speech trumps everything, right? I just think that when you do that, the people that you're trying to convey a message to won't listen to you.
Yeah, well,
they're
so be
now,
it.
they see that and like, I'm not even going to listen to what you have to say now.
I agree,
It looks
but
like you're
so-
my enemy, and I'm not even going to hear what you got to say.
So be it. I mean,
Yeah.
but that if you've made the mistake of delivering the wrong message, that's on you.
And that's my point. I think they're doing it wrong in some instances. There's no question.
And my point is, I think they're watering down, what
Yeah.
the protest is all about. I think you're watering it down. If you, and I understand if they want to fly a Mexican flag, then they should be protesting basically about what their cause is. And if Americans want to join them, they can join in.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about something that's affecting all the states and America itself, then let's stick with that.
Yeah.
So that, because people have that bad idea. Here come the Mexicans in there.
Yeah.
Next to be the Guatemala. Next to be this country, that country.
All right.
You're watering down the message.
Yeah.
That's
Marcellus,
the only reason I say that.
I got to interrupt because I've got to take a break here. But
I know.
listen, appreciate the call, my friend, as always. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
One thing, Matt, and the thing that puzzles me about the whole thing with the Mexican flag, they're protesting the way immigrants are being handled, and most of those immigrants are not Mexican. They're from all of them Central American and other countries, the Venezuelas, the Nicaraguas, you name it. Most of them aren't Mexican.
Yeah, it creates a larger conversation of how the Latinx Latino
Exactly.
population sees themselves.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and we will get to Glenn and Reese, Mike and Russ. Hang on, we'll get to you.
Get the last roof you'll ever need.
Hi, we're back with you. We're talking to Matt Fallon, and we have callers waiting for us. We go to Reese and talk to Glenn this morning. Glenn, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I want to talk about the protesters right now. They say they're peaceful protesters, which they're not, because I can see them, according to the internet, if you can believe that or not, they're looting buildings and burning cars and everything else.
Let's separate out. There's two factions. There's the protesters who are protesting legitimately, and then there are the violent protesters who are doing what you're talking about.
Okay, so let's separate this out then. This is why Trump brought the military in there, because the governor and the mayor of L.A., they're not doing. They didn't get in there and stop it from the start.
Right.
You know, if they're blocking the highway off 101, that's not right. If I want to go to work, I want to go to work. Another thing is, it seems like Karen Bass, she done the same thing when the fire was there. She didn't get the stuff going to put the fire out. As far as they're saying Trump's spending all this money to bring the military in there. Well, they got to pay the military anyway, whether they're trying to stop the rioters or whatever.
Well, there's a couple of things, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but the National Guard, okay, fine. The Marines, I have questions about, because in this country, if you look at the Constitution and the laws of this country, our armed forces are designed to protect this nation, not to enforce laws within this nation. Their authority, in a way, stops at the border. I am concerned when he brings in Marines to control a situation within a state. The National Guard I have no problem with, but I do have a problem with regular military being used. Their job is to protect. You know, I would have no problem bringing the Marines in to seal the border, because that's part of their role, to defend the nation. But protesting, I have a problem with that.
And your concern that you start to have is what could happen, right? You always worry about this, that once you put these pieces in place, the wrong thing happens. One Marine feels threatened. Correct. That same thing. But now, you know, someone fires a machine gun into a crowd and kills, 10, 20 people. You thought the protests were bad now and just in L.A., if something like that were to happen, because you put that on the playing field where it was a potential, and the entire country can light up like the 60s all over the place. And so for me, I hate it, one, because I just don't like to see the military used against U.S. citizens. And to me, that just fundamentally seems wrong. But number two, it definitely creates risk, and that risk could really tear the country apart so much further than, listen, hey, do I love everything about these protests? No, not at all. Yeah. I think once you start, the fringe groups start getting violent and doing things, that's frustrating.
Glenn, real quick.
One more quick thing. How about 2020, year 2020, when they protested in Minnesota and the state of Washington, they were looting and doing all that stuff again,
Yeah, they should have been held accountable, which they weren't.
Nobody stepped in to stop them.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Good enough, Glenn. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Mike is in Thomas Township. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Art. I was in the military, and I just have a real problem with people burning the American flag, whether you're protesting or not. You're in this country. Some of them were citizens of this country protesting. I don't really call it a protest when you see a peaceful protest, when you see all this looting and rocks being thrown at the police, total disregard for law and order. I realize that it's not all the people, that's true, but there's a good portion of them, and then the outside agitators that come in. And where's the money coming for all this special equipment that these looters or protesters, let's call them, are getting. They have staging areas where they had bricks. Obviously, they found them and they took them away. So then they started breaking up the curbs with hammers. Were these special gas masks that they were given? But the flag is my biggest problem. I just have a big problem with people burning the flag.
But of all the things you talked about, that's the one thing that's legal. Courts have
I know.
ruled it is free speech. And,
I know, but-
and I will say this, Mike. One of the things which makes this country great and above most of the others is tolerance for those whom you disagree. That is what makes us different and, in my view, superior to many other countries. Matt?
I'll just say the thing that concerns me right now is consistency.
Yeah.
Because there are people that felt the same January 6th. These were well-armed people in staging areas with equipment attacking something similar to a flag in terms of the United States Capitol.
Yep.
We can't be a world in which if those people have our political acumen and same beliefs, that protest and how they did things are just fine, but I don't like those people and their political beliefs, so their protest is wrong.
I disagree.
We got to find some consistency that there's a right way and a wrong way to protest, and the rule of law, no matter who you are, needs to be held, and people need to be held accountable.
I disagreed with the president's pardon of those people because of that. You know, they attacked the federal building. Everybody says, oh, peaceful. What I saw wasn't very peaceful. They were breaking windows, throwing bricks, attacking the police. Those people deserve to be accountable.
And the politics behind this, Art, of what's
Well-
going on in L.A. goes one step further. If you're really examining this, I think you're starting to see the beginning of the 2028 presidential campaign taking
Could
some
be.
shape right now,
Could be.
which I don't enjoy that either.
No, I don't either.
use this for political purposes.
All right, Mike, got to run. I got to take a break. We're
Okay,
running late.
thank
Talk
you.
to you. Thanks.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day. Bye.
Russ, hang on. You'll be next.
At Crystal Clear Hearing in San
Hi, we're back with you in studio, Matt Fallon, and we go back to our phones. We have John, who is in Bay City. John, you are on with Matt and Art. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I'm listening to your talk show. It's pretty good so far. I just want to add to it. I was recently over to Washington, D.C. We did a tour and seen the Capitol and went there. And I don't know how the Capitol had so much security. I don't know how that took place. I mean, I realize I think it was outside influence. And I think you're seeing the same thing in the riots. The money's coming from somewhere, and they got to find out where. That's all I had to say.
When you say the money, you mean the money for the rioters and what they're doing?
The money that's bringing in, that's funding all the rocks and the gear that they're using, and
Yeah.
so you got to find out where the money's coming from.
Boy, isn't that truth. Follow the
And when
money.
Follow the money.
All right.
Yeah, well,
And I would say anybody gets a chance, go to Washington, D.C. It's pretty impressive. If you get a chance in your lifetime, that's a heck of a trip.
Good thought.
Just see everything.
Thanks, John.
Yep, thanks.
You
Take
bet.
care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Let me tease something just on that theme. We'll get back. Next year, I haven't started talking about it yet. We always do Colette vacations on WSGW. We have one going to the national parks of the Southwest here in September. I got 20 people going. Next year, for the 250th of the United States, we are doing a Colette tour in October that will start in Boston and work its way down to Washington, D.C. to celebrate all of the historic landmarks and things that happened 250 years ago. I'll have more on that probably in early October. You'll hear more about it, but it's already in stone. So
Yes, I will be happy to co-host with you and go on that trip from Boston to D.C. and be a part of that. I will do that to represent the region accordingly.
Very nice of you.
Yes, absolutely. I'll make that sacrifice.
Take you along as a narrator. You can talk about all the shenanigans you did when you worked there. So, the whole conversation about these riots and everything, it's funny you mentioned, the tinderbox it could cause.